This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Speaking out, the mother of the woman charged with stabbing a child says it could have been prevented.
Lobster layoffs. Clearwater Seafoods is getting out of the inshore lobster business.
And Atlantic Canadian First, a pelvic health clinic opens at the Dartmouth General.
Snow to rain at times, heavy and gusty winds into Friday morning, but clearing throughout the day. Your full forecast is coming up.
The mother of a young woman facing an attempted murder charge in Halifax says she warned public officials that her daughter was dangerous and needed help.
In an exclusive interview, less than a week after a 6-year-old boy was stabbed, she tells Kayla Hounsell why she's speaking out.
My heart goes out to that little boy and his family.
Andrea Hancock is clear. The well-being of the 6-year-old boy her daughter allegedly stabbed is her priority. She says she feels a responsibility to speak out.
I need everyone to hear this.
Her daughter, 19-year-old Elliot Chorney, is charged with attempted murder. The child is now in stable condition after suffering multiple stab wounds Sunday.
It was very quick, though, that she started showing signs.
Hancock says her daughter has struggled with mental illness since she was a child and is severely unwell.
On her 18th birthday, she says, I am done taking medication. I'm an adult now.
She says the situation became so unsafe for her other child, her daughter could not continue living at home, instead bouncing from shelter to shelter. A month before the alleged attack on the boy, her mother says a passerby found her on a bridge, threatening to jump.
The police took her to the hospital to get psychiatric care, and they thought she wasn't a danger to herself and others.
She says police told her it resulted in an altercation with a doctor because Chorney didn't want to be released. She was charged with assault.
I phoned them, actually. I said, you just let a very dangerous person out on the street.
In an online forum where Chorney also shared her birth certificate to confirm her identity, she posted many comments about self-harm. 5 days before the attack, she wrote, I apologize in advance if I live and do something awful.
The number one thing that prevents a young person from accessing help is stigma.
This adolescent psychiatrist says it is upon everyone to help reduce that stigma.
If we continue to be rooted in fear around this, we're going to prevent these young people from accessing help, and that is a disservice to everyone.
A publication ban protects the boy's identity. CBC News has not been able to make contact with his parents. Chorney's mother says she knows her daughter must face consequences, but hopes that also includes her getting the help she needs. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
And if you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, help is available through the Nova Scotia Mental Health Crisis Line at 1-888-429-8167. The service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Halifax Regional Police says human remains found last year have been positively identified as those of murdered teenager Devon Sinclair Marsman. Marsman was 16 when he disappeared from the Spryfield area 3 years ago. Investigators found the remains in September of 2024. They were then sent to the Nova Scotia Medical Examiner Service for identification. That month, police confirmed Marsman had been the victim of a homicide and the remains were believed to be his. 4 people are charged in his death. One of them is a 26-year-old who's related to Marsman and is accused of second-degree murder. A 20-year-old man who was a youth at the time of the killing is charged as an accessory to murder, and now 2 women in their 20s are charged as accessories to murder as well. 3 of the accused also face a charge of indignity to human remains.
Nova Scotia fishery giant Clearwater Seafoods is getting out of the inshore lobster business. The company has closed one processing plant in Cape Breton and is shutting down a processing line at another plant on the South Shore. Kyle Moore has a story from Ayrshire.
Fishing giant Clearwater Seafoods has laid off employees at 2 of its Nova Scotia facilities as a result of recent changes to its inshore lobster business. Here at the processing plant in Arichat, employees were informed yesterday that they would be laid off the same day the plant ceased operations. A steady stream of vehicles left the facility on Thursday, employees picking up and returning last-minute items. Clearwater notified about 80 workers at the Arichat plant that their jobs were gone. The company also told workers in Lockport that the seasonal lobster processing line there was being eliminated, laying off about half of the workers there. In a statement Thursday, the company says the lobster market is challenging, and the company intends to align its business mainly with the offshore frozen at-sea fishery. Clearwater says it has a potential buyer for its Arichat plant, and workers could be rehired in May. The Lockport plant will remain open and will operate as a scallop-focused facility year-round, but employees working in the lobster processing have been permanently laid off. In a release, the town of Lockport says it is deeply disappointed by Clearwater Seafood's decision to close its lobster processing department, and that the announcement will have a significant impact on the community. Here's what Nova Scotia's Labour Minister had to say about the layoffs.
We're here to help. We're here to help in any way we can. We've already been in contact with the employer, and we can have teams out to help them find jobs quickly.
And we did talk to a Richmond County councillor today who says the overall feeling here is about uncertainty about the sale of the plant and about jobs in the future. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Arichat.
Nice day in Arichat, but yeah, messy now.
A wet night ahead.
And a Thursday night that will be basically periods of rain at times. Heavy with gusty winds. Tom and Amy, thanks so much as we look at the rainfall warning that is in effect for Thursday night and into Friday morning. Most of the province in and under this warning. Also a lace of wet wind warning in effect. And as we look at the rainfall totals, 10 to 20 millimeters across northern areas, but it is 20 to 50 millimeters across southern areas, the Tri-County area, along the Atlantic coastline, and up into Cape Breton as well. This is, again, warning criteria this time of year, just 25 millimeters of rain. So it doesn't take as much water this time of year with the ground so frozen to cause some issues. And localized flooding, certainly a concern overnight into early Friday. You can imagine those storm drains going to get filled up with the snow and ice as this melts. Note the temperatures also mild with fog patches, so lots of standing water on the road Friday, though this system will clear. Heads up for that Friday morning commute.
All right.
Good to know. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston has agreed to resume taking part in media scrums at the legislature after facing accusations he was curtailing press freedom. 2 weeks ago, Houston ended the long-standing tradition and decided journalists should instead gather in a government building across the street. At the same time, Houston said the arrangement would allow reporters from outside Halifax to join via an online link. Thursday, he reversed that decision.
For me, the fact that it kind of devolved into a discussion about where the Premier was taking his scrums was a disservice to Nova Scotians. So we want to make sure Nova Scotians have access to information that you folks can do your job properly. And so we'll find a way to strike that balance where we can still reach additional outlets that might not be in the city.
Houston and his ministers will return to participating in scrums, but the location will move from the hall outside the legislative chamber to the nearby Red Room.
The provincial government is expanding the Nova Scotia Loyal program to help companies add branding to their packages. Eligible businesses can get a 70% rebate on the cost of adding the Nova Scotia Loyal logo to their packages. Funding is capped at $3,000 per business. The Minister of Growth and Development says this is a way to help local companies appeal to shoppers who want to support Nova Scotia businesses. Companies must follow an application process to prove they are local before they get access to the logo.
Doctors across the country say they're drowning in paperwork and administrative tasks. They say it's time that could be better spent with patients. Some provinces are trying to tackle it, but doctors say there's still a way to go. Heather Gillis reports.
A minor contagious illness lasting a few days. Doctors don't want to write sick notes for that, excusing people from work or school. They're calling for them to be eliminated.
Come on, people. These are grown-ups, and if they have a cold and they are spewing germs and they're making a good call to stay home from work, they don't need to bring those germs into my office to get a note so that you can feel better about them not coming to work.
The Canadian Medical Association estimates doctors wrote 12.5 million sick notes last year. An estimated 6.5 million Canadians don't have access to primary care, and doctors say critically examining the amount of paperwork could be one small step to curing the healthcare crisis. Some provinces are making moves to curb sick notes. In Nova Scotia, employers can't demand them unless a person's been ill for more than 5 consecutive days. In Ontario and Quebec, 3 days. And that's not the only red tape keeping doctors from more patient time.
I mean, in an average week, I'm probably spending 4 to 8 hours doing paperwork, and that's between forms. So basically, forms that are disability forms, disability tax credit forms, Canada pension forms, lawyers' reports.
After putting in a full day, you're up till 10 o'clock at night finishing paperwork. People are answering.
This healthcare researcher says electronic medical records are one thing, counterintuitively increasing the administrative burden, and they could be streamlined.
You might get a PDF from a lab with lab results, but then you got to open it, click it, save it to the right patient. So, there's all these additional steps. It's not automated.
Manitoba and Nova Scotia have struck task forces to reduce doctor red tape. Quebec has passed legislation to reduce it, and many doctors say it's just a start. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's. A new pelvic health suite is now open at the Dartmouth General Hospital.
The clinic is the first of its kind in Atlantic Canada and brings some urology and gynecology procedures under one roof. The CBC's Ali Thompson recently took a tour of the state-of-the-art facility.
So we're here today for the grand opening of the Deanne Reeve Pelvic Health Suite. So this is kind of a very innovative clinical area at Dartmouth General Hospital and important for the rest of the province. So this suite's going to offer 2 procedures, cystoscopy and hysteroscopy. The cystoscopy involves putting a camera inside the bladder to look for problems in the bladder and is performed by a urologist. Hysteroscopy involves putting a camera inside the uterus to look for causes of abnormal bleeding, postmenopausal bleeding, and diagnose those problems. What's nice about the suite is that often we're able to bring a patient in and we're also going to offer procedural sedation, which is really important. So the nurses are trained in offering procedural sedation so the patients can be comfortable. Usually the patients are awake and are able to watch the procedure on the monitors. So often as you're doing the procedure, you can explain to the patient what you're seeing, what the problem is. If you see something of significance, you can biopsy it or often treat it at the same time, which is really important.
So the biggest thing, obviously, with more footprint in the hospital, more places to do work, you're going to see more patients. It's as simple as that. So our numbers are going to go up. The amount of people that we scope is going to increase significantly, which means that we can get to people faster on the wait list.
So tell me a little about your experience with the healthcare system.
Yeah, it's certainly been challenging. When I wasn't feeling great in 2020, I ended up having to go to a walk-in clinic, and unfortunately I was misdiagnosed with a UTI and didn't get better, so I ultimately ended up having to go to see my primary care provider, who ultimately told me to go to the Dartmouth General to get an ultrasound, and that's where I was ultimately diagnosed with a kidney stone.
So what kind of impact do you think this health suite can have on patients like you?
Yeah, it's going to be life-changing for so many men, women, and gender-diverse individuals who are experiencing issues with their pelvic health.
It started 2 years ago. We raised the $500,000 in 6 months, but then of course it takes a while to build a structure like this.
We have found that no one is talking about women's health. No one is talking about conditions women suffer from. People are afraid to say the V word, vagina. But we're saying, let's stop that. Let's make the conversation in our homes and in the public.
Tell me about your friend.
Yeah, she's our best friend for over 30 years. Just loved her, and unfortunately, she had a late diagnosis of cervical cancer and passed away.
And we know Deanne would probably not be thrilled to be the center of attention because she was not that person. She spent her life bringing others up and helping others get to their potential. So it kind of is fitting now that we are doing all we can to help show the world what a great person she was.
Yeah.
More evidence of winter, Amy.
Certainly is. Yuck. All right. Well, Ryan will be up next with full weather forecast. We'll see you in a few minutes.
All right, we saw the video of the snow coming down just before the commercial break there in Halifax. Yep, it was white for a while.
Yeah, and then turning to rain, and but Friday's looking up, right?
Yeah, this whole mess will kick out through Friday as we look out the window here at 6 o'clock. It is still snowing downtown, so it's kind of starting to see that mixing in through the south and west. Let's have a look at our current temperatures. You can see we're on the plus side. Western Head, back row, that Shelburne station has been down for a couple of days. Hopefully that's back online soon. Westport and Yarmouth at 3, and the metro area is still at -1. So the milder air is starting to work its way in with those southerly winds, but taking its time, certainly. But watching for that to continue to, that southerly wind to bump those temperatures up over the next few hours. We're gusting already 60 kilometers per hour, Yarmouth and Westport. And again, we will be looking at some gusts near 60 for most of the mainland and into Cape Breton tonight. Coastal areas gusting 70 to 80 kilometers per hour through the overnight. So yeah, it is definitely going to be a very windy night. So buckle up for that. Maybe a little bit of sleep lost if you're prone to hearing the wind rattling on the windows. Now have a look. You can see with the radar here showing where that snow has been working its way in, a couple of centimeters with this, and then with these milder temperatures, radar indicating that mixing area is starting to push its way up to the metro area here as of the 6 o'clock hour. This system will continue to move through. We're into the warm sector and then back into the cooler air on the back side of this low. Secondary low here moving through the prairies. That is set for Saturday. So you can see temperatures starting to drop here across the Great Lakes behind that system as well. 14 in Calgary today. Always with some nice winter warm-ups there from time to time. Rainfall warning, as I said earlier, in case you missed it, in effect for most of the province. The latest wet wind warning. There's the rainfall totals. 10 to 20 millimeters for the north, 20 to 50 millimeters for southern areas of the province. Heaviest amounts right along that Atlantic coastline where we could see some pockets that do exceed 50 millimeters. Note how temperatures will be very mild overnight, promoting the melting. So it's not just the rain, it's the melting, it's the fog. So lots of water that's going to be running off here. And so watch for some localized flooding for Friday morning. If there's roads where the storm drains are clogged with snow and ice, it's just going to have a tougher time getting away. So we could see some localized flooding for Friday morning. Note that rain clearing last for Cape Breton by about lunchtime. Sunshine into the afternoon. This trough will sweep through into the afternoon, bringing at least a chance for a shower or a flurry, so keeping an eye on that. And note that if you've got some plans for Friday evening, these temperatures are going to be dropping below the freezing mark, so things turning a bit icy Friday evening, so a heads up on that. Temperatures peaking though in the 5, 6, 7, 8 degree range on Friday. Those northwest winds will shift in, so they're the winds overnight, gusting 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. And then as we move our way into the Friday morning time period, it's Cape Breton hanging onto the winds. Already lighter winds for the west on Friday morning. And then that west to northwest wind into the afternoon, ushering in that cooler air. We'll see some gusts in the 40, 50, even 60 kilometers per hour along parts of the coast for the later stages of Friday. Saturday, next system arrives. It's looking more and more likely that it's central and eastern areas that may see just a very light dusting of snow here, enough to slick the roads up though if you're traveling Saturday afternoon. More snow for New Brunswick. We're into the showers here by Saturday evening across Nova Scotia and into Cape Breton as well. This system, not nearly as much juice to play with for Nova Scotia. And then for Sunday, temperatures are actually going to be falling throughout the day. So we'll start near 1. We'll end the afternoon likely in the -4 to -6 range. And then temperatures will continue to fall all the way down to the minus double digits by Monday morning. Monday stays chilly. Temperatures start to recover through Tuesday. Maybe a bit of a messy mix on Wednesday, with temperatures looking balmy with some more wet weather for Thursday, Tom and Amy.
That's one way to put it, balmy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
All right, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next, we get reaction to the legislative changes the Houston government has put forward for Nova Scotia universities. The Houston government has introduced amendments that could bring about some big changes to Nova Scotia universities. That includes linking funding it provides to the institutions to government priorities. Kathy Conrad is president of the St. Mary's University Faculty Association. So I guess first off, what was your reaction when you learned about these planned amendments?
It came as quite a surprise to see that the provincial government has introduced Bill 12, which is called an Act Respecting Advanced Education and Research. We're still reacting to what it is that we're reading in this omnibus bill, but it's looking like there is sweeping political interference proposed in the internal operations of educational affairs of universities. So it's a great concern.
Well, why do you think the province would want to link the funding for universities to its own priorities?
Well, this is a trend that we're seeing in North America right now, isn't it? Unfortunately, with conservative governments, that interference in relation to social and economic priorities of governments being linked to the educational mandates of institutions. I guess, the provincial government with its majority now feels that they have the power and authority to influence their priorities in all sectors, including educational sectors, which is very problematic and of great concern to us.
Why do you find it problematic?
Well, universities are, we run based on evidence. We provide a range of educational opportunities and experiences. These should not be connected to economic priorities of the political government of the day. Again, we're seeing this south of our border. This feels very much like Trump-style politics in our own province of Nova Scotia right here. And universities need to, have oversight for sure and fiscal responsibility. And we do receive grants from government, so that is important. Transparency is important. But we also need to have autonomy to ensure that decisions are made based on educational priorities and evidence-based and not on political mandates. So to give an example, if this particular government doesn't see the environment as a priority, what will happen to environmental programs? That's where I'm housed. I'm housed in the School of the Environment at St. Mary's University. And, it's been made clear now that this particular government has removed the Coastal Protection Act. There is a move back towards fracking and perhaps the future of uranium extraction. And so if the environment and social justice, arts and humanities, if these aren't economic priorities of this particular government, will they withhold grants? Will they, move towards sweeping changes in our institutions?
I guess the argument could be made that people graduating our universities should be ready to fill the needs of the workforce, and vice versa. Graduates should have opportunities, job opportunities waiting for them when they leave school.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all. I think that it's about balance. And, there certainly are many individuals who choose to go in the trades, go to colleges, go to university to become engineers and nurses and doctors. And this is how we've always functioned. But the fact that there are other programs and opportunities that might not look at face value as linking directly to a job necessarily, but the arts and the humanities, for example, contribute to the maintenance and health of democracy vis-a-vis teaching skills of critical reasoning and debate and the evaluation of ideas. And these are skills that are needed probably more so in our country and across the world right now than ever before. So if we see the erosion of programs related to arts and humanities that may not on the surface contribute directly to a job or an economic priority, that erosion is going to be highly, impactful.
Now, many universities are in tough financial times. What do you say to folks who say maybe it is time for someone like the province to step in?
I think, we don't, or the faculty union at SPU, we don't take issue with fiscal responsibility and transparency, improvements in management of the universities and That's not the issue. I think that the larger concern is that with this omnibus bill, those sorts of oversights are tagged along with this connection of keeping grants out of universities if the universities are not aligned with the political agenda of the conservative government that we currently have. In addition, this omnibus bill proposes that 50% of the boards of governors of universities across the province will be made up of individuals that are appointed by the provincial government. So the kinds of influence that are going to be put in place by the government, are these the best people to oversee our institutions? I would question, the influence that is going to be put in place by all of this.
Now, another change would have the universities enter something called a revitalization plan. What would that entail?
I think that, that we have first of all, we have no idea. And that's where the problems are here. The Minister of Education can say, oh, this isn't going to be done with a heavy hand, and there's going to be consultation. And yet, if this bill goes through as it's currently written, the sweeping ability of the provincial government to do things like amalgamate universities and amalgamate programs, remove programs. I mean, there's power in this omnibus bill that is stark. It's frightening. It's counter to the evidence base of how our institutions have been run and continue to be run. I mean, so the sweeping powers that are embedded in this bill are of great concern, and that revitalization, that word. The sentiment to revitalize an institution could be beneficial, but in the absence of the details and in the absence of the consultation, I mean, I'm hearing that there will be consultation, but as of the first reading, there's been none. I will be having a lot of meetings with a lot of people in the coming days to try and sort out exactly what is going on with this bill. But as it's currently written, it really does represent sweeping new powers that really violate the autonomy of universities. There's been a statement that's been issued by the Canadian Association of University Teachers against this, and really, the powers that are being provided to the Minister of Advanced Education, really connected to social and economics. This social and economic priorities is so problematic.
All right, it is one to watch for sure. Kathy Conrad, thank you very much for your time today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, Canadian officials are in Washington in their latest effort to prevent the Donald Trump tariff threat.
And more Canadians are falling behind on their mortgages as the cost of living hits household budgets. Welcome back. A Canadian delegation is in Washington in the latest push to stop U.S. tariffs. The Minister of Public Safety and the newly appointed fentanyl czar are there to promote efforts by Canada to fight fentanyl trafficking.
As the CBC's Cameron McIntosh reports, it's happening as Donald Trump is doubling down on threats to impose steep tariffs next week.
Public Safety Minister David McGuinty leading a delegation of Canadian officials in Washington, including the heads of the RCMP and Canada Border Services Agency, along with newly appointed fentanyl czar Kevin Brosseau, trying to head off President Trump's threats to impose sweeping tariffs of 25% on almost all Canadian imports set for next Tuesday. Trump has tied the tariffs to border security, in particular fentanyl, which he insists is a problem coming in from Canada. The heads of the RCMP and CBSA both meeting with U.S. officials to highlight recent fentanyl and drug crackdowns, including a month-long RCMP initiative that led to seizures of more than 16,000 pills and more than 500 arrests. McGuinty insisting when it comes to drugs, Canada is succeeding in strengthening its border.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met.
Now, even before the delegation got to the White House, Trump posted the March 4th tariffs will go ahead unless fentanyl is, quote, stopped or seriously limited. Only about 1% of American fentanyl comes through Canada. Trump originally threatened to impose the tariffs earlier this month. Canada got an extension. Trump has said getting another one will be, quote, hard. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Washington.
Donald Trump's shifting goalposts and deadlines have made planning for potential tariffs difficult. Many Canadian grain farmers are trying to head off the threat by selling their products to American buyers fast. Anis Haderi hits the road to the U.S. for a closer look.
These small ports are now 9 to 5.
It's an early start to the day at Landon Friesen's grain farm, beginning with paperwork to get wheat across the U.S. border. He's making that trip more often this winter, trying to get all of his grain to American buyers before a possible tariff hits.
Why is there a rush to get all this grain delivered before March the 4th? The grain's not going anywhere, right? It's not like it'll go bad.
Correct. The grain won't go bad, but our markets are going to close down, or the tariff will hurt the markets, and that's what we're racing against the time.
Canada exports a lot of wheat to the U.S., $1 billion worth in 2023. A 25% tariff could lower American demand, which would lower the price farmers get. That's why farmers like Friesen are rushing before tariffs.
I guess we're coming up here, so...
Yeah, you guys got your passports?
Yeah.
And if it gets harder to ship to the U.S., there's trouble for everyone. It can cost money to change where and who you sell to.
The fact is that the diversification and all of the impacts are going to raise costs of doing businesses for Canadian businesses, and that's going to have an impact for Canadian consumers.
Whatever the impact, farmers like Landon Friesen are just getting their work done for now.
I gotta say, you sound very relaxed for someone whose business might take a 25% hit.
It will hurt industry in Canada. Could cause our exchange rate to really go sideways, or it's going to hurt us at the grocery store maybe, but that's how tariffs work, right? They affect often the consumers, and that's probably what it'll do.
But he also says he's got a lot of time for Americans.
I mean, these are our neighbors to the south. We've done life with them, right? We don't have a big border wall. There's always been a lot of respect for each other, I think. We all need to get along. We can't pick up and move.
All he can do for now is keep moving grain. Anis Haderi, CBC News, near Crystal City, Manitoba.
Police are now calling the deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy suspicious. The couple and their dog were found dead in their Santa Fe home. Their front door, according to an affidavit, left ajar. Steve Futterman has the latest on the investigation from Los Angeles.
In New Mexico, law enforcement officials made the shocking discovery. They found the bodies of Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa in separate rooms. Near her body were some pills. It appears they may have been dead for several days. Also found dead inside the home one of their 3 dogs. Last night, officials said there was no indication of foul play. But in an affidavit filed today, Law enforcement officials said the deaths are suspicious enough to conduct a full search and investigation. An initial examination showed no sign of carbon monoxide leaks or poisoning. The deaths have sent shockwaves throughout Hollywood. Among those reacting, director Francis Ford Coppola. He called Hackman a great actor, inspiring and magnificent in his work and complexity. Gene Hackman's first big break came in 1967, starring in the Warren Beatty film Bonnie and Clyde. 4 years later, he hit the Hollywood jackpot.
All right, Popeye's here!
Playing New York detective Poppy Doyle in The French Connection and winning the first of 2 Oscars. In 1986 came perhaps Hackman's most memorable scene, playing a high school coach of an underdog team in Hoosiers and delivering a classic pregame pep talk.
I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
He took on all sorts of different roles, even playing one of Superman's arch rivals, Lex Luthor.
When he fires that, take out your pistols.
In 1992, he won his second Oscar for Unforgiven. Performing was always a dream. Gene Hackman said from the age of 10 he knew he wanted to be an actor, but success wasn't assured. When he was starting out in the mid-1950s, Hackman and another struggling actor, Dustin Hoffman, were voted by fellow acting students the least likely to succeed. They couldn't have been more wrong. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Manitoba has become the first province to sign on to the federal government's pharmacare plan. As part of the agreement, the province will receive $219 million over 4 years. The money will go towards the universal coverage of diabetes medication, contraceptives, and other medical supplies. Canada's health minister was in Winnipeg for the announcement and called it the beginning of an important step forward.
It starts here. This is the beginning of a journey that cannot end, that we must not allow end because there's no room for politics in this. It's just logic. It's the thing we must do for this country. And I could not be more proud to be here today with my colleagues, with Uzoma, for the start of the transformation that must occur.
The number of Canadians falling behind on their mortgage payments is on the rise as the strain of the steep cost of living hits household budgets. The trend is hitting some provinces harder than others. Nisha Patel explains.
Are you kidding me?
Struggling with steep mortgage payments on their Toronto home, Sonia Sharma and her husband put the house up for rent and moved to Montreal.
Everything became so expensive for us that we had to actually look for a better cost of living place.
But they're still on the hook for $2,000 a month and may soon face a tough choice.
All in all, we don't want to, but we may have to think of selling the house.
While they're managing to hold on to the property for now, other mortgage holders may not be as lucky. In Ontario, the mortgage delinquency rate has jumped 90% in the past year. That's where a homeowner hasn't made a payment for at least 3 months. It's also climbed about 40% in BC and Quebec.
Those high interest rates that we've had for quite some time, although they are starting to come down now, that's still creating some additional stress.
The Bank of Canada has cut the key interest rate to 3%. Still, for more than 1 million fixed-rate mortgages that are coming up for renewal this year, that's much higher than when the loans were first signed.
You already have this widening gap, and is that going to get worse?
Some mortgage agents are urging clients to shop around and evaluate options like stretching amortization.
This is a moment to review, not put our head in the sand, and just plan, budget, know what's coming your way.
That's especially crucial as unemployment in Canada has been on the rise, and the risks of U.S. tariffs could weigh on the economy. Sharma says that keeps her up at night.
Now we have some people in our circle, we personally know them who are laid off, so it could be me tomorrow, it could be my husband, it could be anyone.
For now, she's cutting costs, preparing to face any uncertainties in the months ahead. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
The first all-Canadian Antarctic expedition is now traversing the open sea between the southern tip of Chile and the Antarctic Peninsula. And the science team is already working away, deploying instruments even before they reach the frozen continent. Susan Ormiston is aboard the Canadian naval ship heading south.
We are crossing the Drake Passage, and we will be crossing over the 60th parallel today, which is the demarcation of Antarctica, but we're more than a day out yet from the Antarctic Peninsula, from land. The science team aboard HMCS Margaret Brooke is getting ready, and today they launched what's called an Argo float, really important to measure the ocean.
This is the float that we're going to launch today. It's an Argo float. This is the antenna that it uses to talk to the satellite, and this is the instrument package in here. It measures the temperature and the salinity of the seawater.
Sophia Johannesson is with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans.
Did you have a look at the bladder when it was lying down? As soon as we let it go overboard, it will go down to 1,000 meters, and then it will float along at 1,000 meters wherever the current takes it for about 10 days. And then at the end of 10 days, it will go down further to 2,000 meters, and then it will shoot right up to the surface.
All right, in the water!
It will make contact with a GPS satellite to pinpoint its position, and then it will also send the information, the stored temperature and salinity data, up to a different satellite.
And how long will it stay in this ocean?
For 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
Just floating around, measuring all the time. The Argo float array goes all around the world in all the oceans, not so many in the Southern Ocean as everywhere else, but there are 3,000 of them about in the water at the moment. They are measuring the temperature. They can tell us how the water is warming, and that can be used in climate models, both to help predict the short-term weather and also to give more information about future climate change and how fast the world is warming.
These floats will move around in the current, and here the Antarctic circumpolar current moves around and around and around the continent unimpeded by any land. For much of the trip, it's been sort of light rain and relatively warm, but we're noticing a discernible drop in temperature as we move into Antarctica, where the cold southern waters meet the Atlantic, which is a bit warmer. We are expecting snow tonight, and by late Friday or early Saturday, we should see Antarctica proper, land on the Antarctic Peninsula. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, aboard HMCS Margaret Brooke.
As awards season continues, the Academy is reportedly considering a rule change. It comes after backlash that 2 Best Picture nominees used artificial intelligence. Magda Gabrisalasa shows us how it could change the Oscars race.
They do not want us here.
The Brutalist is up for Best Picture at the Oscars, and its star Adrian Brody nominated for Best Actor. But last month there was backlash after news spread the production used artificial intelligence.
They've just used like a very small percentage.
The film reportedly used re-speecher to tweak the lead actors' voices while they were speaking Hungarian. The tech was used in Oscar contender Emilia Perez 2, helping increase the vocal range of the musical's lead, Carla Sofia Gascon.
What you doing?
While this dialect coach is less worried about the limited use of AI in these films, he says its use in other areas raises concerns for the future.
We're seeing in parts of the industry like voiceover actors, commercial voice actors, gaming industry as well. AI is already taking over.
Concerns about AI were a driver of Hollywood's 2023 strikes, during which writers and actors negotiated some protections. But now the Academy behind the Oscars may be ready to weigh in too. It's considering changes requiring films to disclose if AI was used, according to Variety.
I do think that like directors, actors, studios, like it is a responsibility to them to give audiences kind of the whole picture.
We usually have a lot of traction.
But this post-production expert is reminding audiences that Hollywood movie magic has always included manipulation tools.
You're taking away pimples all the time. You're taking away, you're making people look younger, old. I mean, it's all cheating, right? Like it's cheating for a creative benefit.
But some of that creativity may call for more clarity come April. That's reportedly when the Academy is expected to roll out a new guideline for Oscar submissions. Magda Gabrisalasa, CBC News, Toronto.
Yeah, white stuff, then wet stuff.
I know, and we had the fog before that would sort of eat into the old snow. So
Yeah.
I don't.
For sure. Lots of melting tonight. Just peeking out the window here, looks like some mixing now and through the Halifax area. We will continue to see that transition from snow to rain from southwest to northeast through tonight, through this evening for most, in fact. Let's get to our viewer picture first. Not a wet scene, but a snowy one. This taken a few days ago in Inverness.
I like
the race
that
is
one.
on, huh?
Beautiful.
Yeah. At the track in Inverness, and thanks to Francis A. McDonald. Always great pictures coming from Francis. Really appreciate it. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Yeah, maybe a bit of slip sliding at the track tomorrow with the rain on top. And yeah, rainfall warnings again in effect for all of Cape Breton, the Northeast, the Atlantic coastline, and into the Tri-County area, and that's that area you generally see here highlighted in yellow. That's 20 millimeters or more based on the model, and yeah, it looks like that is a pretty good possibility for most of the province, a little less towards the north. There's the timeline, and again, model doing a pretty good job showing that mixing now and through the Halifax area in green, and that is going to continue to work northeast over the next couple of hours. Wet, windy, foggy overnight tonight, so lots of snow melting. Be mindful of that on the roads for early Friday morning. Ponding, pooling water, risk of some localized flooding. And then that front will clear out, and we'll see a pretty quiet day on Friday. Will give us some time to, watch that water recede back and get away a little bit, because temperatures are going to be dropping as we move into the Friday time period. Another system to track Saturday afternoon into Saturday night, and then chilly next week, but not for long.
All right, Ryan, thanks for that. Well, the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket has blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Go, Falcon, go.
The rocket is sending 2 important payloads on journeys to the moon. The first is an Intuitive Machines lunar lander. The lander is named Athena. It's set to land near the moon's south pole on March 6th and operate for around 10 Earth days. Intuitive Machines made history last year as the first private company to successfully land on the moon.
Also heading to the moon is NASA's Lunar Trailblazer satellite. Its mission to search for water on the surface of the moon. Finding sources of water will be critical for any long-term human lunar presence.
And they're away. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.